Welcome to our first session. My name's Emma. I have the great pleasure of introducing John Roberto. John has spent a lifetime in Christian ministry formation, Christian faith formation, training leaders, writing books, producing program material, and consulting with churches. For the past 25 years, he's been engaged in developing theory and practice of intergenerational faith. His latest publications include Faith Formation with a New Generation, Families at the Center of Faith Formation, Seasons of Adult Faith Formation, which I've actually used in one of my classes, John, and Generations Together and Reimagining Faith Formation for the 21st Century. He's a founder of Lifelong Faith Associates and the Center for Ministry Development, and works part-time for Vibrant Faith Ministries. He's got quite the broad body of work there. So I invite you to join me in welcoming John, and we look forward to hearing from you today. Thank you, John.
Great. Thanks, Emma. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to kind of launch right in. Just so you put me in context, I live on the East Coast of the United States in Connecticut, right outside New York City. So it is evening on Tuesday here. So hopefully I'll stay awake for the next hour. No, I'm only kidding. So let's begin. So this presentation is going to look at how to expand intergenerational experiences digitally. And I know that might seem like a little bit of an oxymoron. How do you, intergenerational is so heavily relational. How do you do things in a digital space? I'm going to try to talk about that a little bit. Just so you know, after the presentation, if you want to reach me, jroberto@lifelongfaith.com is my email. Feel free to do that. Two resources I want to highlight really quickly. For more about this digital approach to designing faith formation, we have a wonderful resource at Vibrant Faith Ministries called Vibrant Faith Catalyst. It's free. You can log on, and we have a toolkit on designing faith formation in this coming year with all its uncertainties. And then my own website is lifelongfaith.com. So those are just two to help you continue resourcing you, and all the materials there are free. I think it's just important to start by just reflecting over the last 2-3 decades. There's just been a remarkable development in the thinking and practice of intergenerationality over the past 3 decades. Christian congregations are rediscovering the power of the intergenerational faith community for forming and transforming people in Christian faith. And for us who've been part of this for so long, we have the sense that we're not making enough progress quickly enough, but in fact, we've come just an awful long way in the last 2 decades, 25 years. It's been pretty amazing. So what's happening is we're rediscovering the primacy of intergenerational community, and that's really across the board. And I've had the opportunity to speak in the United Kingdom and Australia, people in New Zealand, Canada, the US. Those are the ones I'm most familiar with. But just rediscovering the primacy of intergenerational community relationships and faith-forming experiences for developing and sustaining faith and discipleship in people of all ages and generations. And churches are rediscovering their intergenerational heart and soul. That's what I see consistently, that there's some real energy and movement around intergenerational. And over this period of time, I kind of watched this growth and development a bit, is that by and large, all of our faith communities are multi-generational, meaning that all ages are together for some activities. Sometimes we are intentional about fostering some cross-generational experiences, sharing, listening, and learning from each other. And sometimes we even go further to provide real intergenerationality, mutuality, equality, reciprocity. And so as you move from multi-generational to intergenerational, you're developing a deeper culture of intergenerational church. I should also note, I forgot to say this to begin with, the PowerPoint is also going to be available. So you can get the PowerPoint and be able to download that for yourself. 3 big strategies that people have been using and continue to use that kind of help, if you will, this process. So how do you move from multi-generational, which is kind of what you've been given, into more cross-generational, intergenerational faith formation and ministry? We can transform multi-generational environments into experiences of intergenerational connection and community. So lots of people are becoming more intentionally intergenerational, whether it's worship experiences, educational and learning experiences. They're also transforming age-specific programs by adding intergenerational activities or redesigning the program. The youth mission trip becomes an intergenerational mission trip. The Children's Vacation Bible Study becomes an Vacation Bible School becomes an intergenerational VBS. And people are creating new initiatives, new programming, worship, learning, service, and justice that contribute toward building an intergenerational culture in the congregation. So those kind of things are going on. And most of them are going on in what I'll call physical settings where people are gathered together. But we now live in a new context. So Australia has been much, much better than the US in how it's coped with COVID-19. The US is when you open the book to how not to do it, that's a picture of the United States of America. But there's three things that I'm working on as I think about the next 18 months to 2 years, is that we're not going to go back to the normal we had, in our case, before March 1st. That normal is not coming back. We're going to be transformed for good or for bad by the COVID-19 pandemic. And we're no longer talking about months. This is only going to happen for a couple of months. No, we're talking about years. And I'm watching all the churches are doing now to kind of reopen for worship. At my church here in town, Catholic parish, you have to make reservations, so it's a whole different world, and the amount of distancing and sanitizing has to go with that. And in many ways, we're not going to be able to gather people in church facilities as we have in the past. We go through a variety of different group phases, as many countries are doing, 10 people, 50 people, and then over 50 people, but it's just not going to be the same. And intergenerational programming, intergenerational activities are going to be really directly hit because of our ability to gather people in larger groups. Andy Crouch, Kurt Kalhacker, and Dave Blanchard wrote an article of Leading Beyond the Blizzard, and they talked about the pandemic in these three images of blizzard. Now, probably in Australia, that may not be the most applicable weather condition, but if you live in the upper part of the United States or in Canada, you know what a blizzard is. It comes, it's intense, but after a couple of days, it's gone. You shovel the snow, and usually, like in Connecticut, you get a beautiful blue sky, gorgeous day after the snow. It's not going to be a blizzard. It's not going to be winter, a season. It's going to be what they call a mini ice age. And so it's going to last longer. So that's where this quote comes from. They say, "This time poses the greatest leadership crisis any of us have faced. It can be a moment of amazing creativity, though it also is going to be a time of unavoidable pain and loss. We will discover that while many resources are suddenly unavailable to us, the most essential resource is still available, and the most important reality has not changed. The reality is that God has called us to a time like this, given us a mission and a community to serve alongside, and we still have the most important resource, which is trust in the context of love. Everything depends on how quickly and thoroughly we move to build on that resource starting today." And so I've been working through webinars and resources and working with churches to say, plan for next year unlike any other time you've ever planned before, without a lot of the givens that we used to have in terms of gathering people, fixed time programming, and the rest. Intergenerational is certainly going to experience that. So it's important to remember, like in the States, basically by the middle of March, we started kind of the stay at home, and slowly beginning in May, and now especially in June, in my own state, we're moving to our second phase. But this wonderful article by a pastor, Samuel Rodriguez, about his experience. And so I want to remember this. He said, as churches begin to slowly resume services, we should ask ourselves, should we return to business as usual? For many of us, church over the years has become synonymous with steeples, programs, music, and attire. But to the first believers, the church meant an intimate, family-centric community of faith. It was almost like intergenerational was woven into their DNA. From my perspective, he said, as a pastor, one of the silver linings of the COVID-19 pandemic is that it has forced us to once again make our homes places of worship and learning and service and care. So before we rush back to business as usual next Sunday, let's take a moment to remember that the church is not a building or a service. It is a vibrant, diverse community of people, which at its very heart is built by families. Intergenerational families across 3 or 4 generations. So I think this is the time to reinvent. Most of the great inventions and innovations in history have come during times of big disruption. So I'm not going to put us in that category, but say this is a great time to reinvent. And then expand intergenerational experiences digitally. And so what is the digital world and the digital transformation affecting the whole world? What does that offer us intergenerationally? These are, for me, the 3 basic programming modes that we operate in. Everybody knows the red mode: gathered programming, church, camp, mission trips, retreat centers, community places. Most of intergenerational experiences happen in the red zone. But we were forced in March to make this very abrupt overnight shift from red to purple, and to be able to do everything online. Now, some churches did it really, really well, but they have been doing things really, really well online. Other churches try to make the online look like their church. And so you had really great worship services and you had some really poor worship services that were live streamed. How do we utilize online programming for intergenerationality? How do we use blended, which is a blend of gathered and online? Because even in this reopening, small groups are going to be able to do things together. Extended families will be able to do things together. Families that perhaps have been sheltering in place or are in the same neighborhood and control those kind of variables will be able to do things together. So how do we use all 3 modes, but realizing we're not going to go left to right? We're going to go from online to blended and eventually into more large group gathered settings. We already have the tools. These are kind of, if you will, off-the-shelf digital tools. Website platforms, we need, for all these strategies I want to talk about, you need a digital platform, a good faith formation website. Weebly, Squarespace, and Wix are 3 website builders that don't demand you know any programming language. Obviously, WordPress is the graduate program. Online learning platforms, Edmodo, Google Classroom, any of those, and at other ones, we might need an online learning platform, password protected, safe for children, youth, and of course their families. Video conferencing and streaming, we welcome experts on Zoom, Facebook Live, YouTube Live in order to stream worship or stream programming. Group interaction, Facebook groups is still kind of rock solid because you invite people into the group. Communication tools, really robust email. Churches that didn't have email or communication patterns where email was seen as a vehicle for not only announcements, but also formation, were really hindered when everything shut down. They had no way to communicate, to engage people. Obviously, texting. Social media tools like Facebook and Instagram, we know those well, but Instagram especially because of Instagram stories, as well as Instagram images, but the stories and the video that can go with that, Instagram becomes a real great tool for learning. And then all the digital learning apps that are available out there, they're either low cost or they're free for creating videos and creative projects and portfolios and all kinds of wonderful things that we can now use in the digital environment. And we'll need some kind of digital video camera. It could be our iPhone or it could be something more advanced than that, but we'll need some way to be able to stream and do something with high quality, but not big ticket items. None of this is big technology. It's things that are pretty much off the shelf. So I'm going to look at 5 different kind of categories of intergen online and blended ideas. Whole church ones, mentoring or one-on-one relationships, home-based, small group, and large group. And just to give you a bunch of ideas. So it's like, which one should you do? Well, they're all great ideas, and I love ideas. So unfortunately, you're going to be the recipients of things that I love to talk about. So ideas that I came across that I really love. The first group of these are ideas, and they're the low-hanging fruit, so to speak. Everybody can do this. So we want to do something intergenerational. We want to do it in a digital platform, intergenerational digital storytelling. So StoryCorps is something in the US, but you can access it. Obviously, it's online. But intergenerational storytelling festivals, I mean, every age. What's so interesting is we're so digital and technological, and something as ancient as storytelling is just front and center during this COVID-19. People telling their stories, how they're surviving at home, creating videos of that and audio, a podcast of that. So intergenerational storytelling in families across the whole church, in audio or video form, publish them online. Like, this is a great time to capture the stories of our people and to share those. And we could utilize those in programming that we do, so we could focus people's around a focusing question. They could do their life story, what God and following Jesus has meant to them. I mean, embedded in our community are all these just riveting stories that people have had. And most of us don't know those stories. StoryCorps developed in the middle of this pandemic, StoryCorps Connect, new technology that they developed, and basically it's this. It's a platform that enables you to record a StoryCorps interview. And a StoryCorps interview is just two people interviewing each other. The best ones, I think, are when the grandchildren interview the grandparents. They're just the stories that pour out, and they're usually about 5 to 10 minutes, 12 minutes long. So you can record an interview with a loved one remotely using video conference technology. Now, we could do that on Zoom. You could do that on FaceTime. You could do that on a lot of, and in the US, all those interviews go into the American Folklife Center at the Library of Congress to be preserved forever. So it's just this rich audio story of Americana. Well, you can do this in your church. I mean, this is, and some of the best interviewers are like 8 or 9 years old. These already have the technology because they can access the tech. So to be able to develop intergenerational storytelling is kind of the fabric of how we're going to keep people connected and tap into their rich wisdom. The young have stories to tell, the old have stories to tell, families have stories to tell. Just one idea to think about: how do we build relationships with people through storytelling? This is story time. So this has been one of the most popular things during the COVID-19 is people. This is Chris Pine of Star Trek and Wonder Woman fame. He did storytelling. It's this whole storyline online. All these celebrities did stories. They read children's storybooks, and I watched some churches appropriate that as they did, like grandparents, in the community, reading stories at fixed times where people could tune in to the. You could do it on Zoom. You could do it on Facebook Live. You could do it on YouTube Live. You could do biblical stories that way with a children's Bible or with a children's storybook that reflects a biblical story. Story Path is a resource from Union Presbyterian Seminary in Richmond, Virginia. And what they've done is they've correlated children's storybooks to big Bible stories, to the lectionary, to Old Testament and New Testament readings. And so it's an amazing resource, but every church can do intergenerational story time. I mean, it's just sitting there ready for you to do it. This is intergenerational relationship building. This was one of the interesting things that came up in the middle of COVID-19. COVID-19 has left millions of older adults feeling trapped, scared, and further isolated. We're here to help. It's called Sweet Readers Connect. With remote training modules support any youth anywhere, ages 11 to 22, which they call ambassadors, can engage with and bring joy into the home of an isolated adult in need. During our 15 to 30-minute visits, ambassadors reach adult participants through FaceTime, Zoom, and WhatsApp. Together, they share their stories, favorite music, create collaborative poetry, etc. And then they have a whole list of how to reach adults in need. I mean, every church could do this. You know who the older people in your community are. I mean, they're the ones that are worship every single Sunday. They're the ones who give money every week. And so we know who those people are. Look at the intergenerational connection in a simple idea. When you download the PowerPoint, you'll get all the URLs and all the links. I love this idea, mainly because I love the movie Up. But how about an intergenerational film festival? That's a combination of everybody watching the same movie this week and then sharing their thoughts, for example, on Facebook or where, you figure out the platform. So this is one family that instituted a regular family night using Disney movie nights. Now, you could use biblical movie, you could use any movie you want, but I just love the story. One of our most recent Disney movie nights, we chose to watch Disney Pixar's Up. This is one of my personal favorites, and we had a blast putting it together. My daughter made tons of balloons and decorated the whole living room with them. There were so many, I started to think we might float away with Carl and Russell. Well, if you've seen the movie, you know who Carl and Russell are. I made a dinner that consisted of hot dogs, or Doug's dogs, as I called them, along with 2 very yummy desserts, Sky Jello and Carl's sugar cookie balloons. You get the general drift that this is really a whole, like Dad has really overdone it. We always make sure to have popcorn, and I always name it. This time was Kevin's Poppin' Corn. So if you haven't seen the movie Up, you have to watch the movie in order to understand the way he's named food. But imagine doing this across all the generations watching it, wherever you are. You know, if you want to gather with other families, you want to just gather your family. If I'm a single adult, I could be watching it, and the shared experience is happening on Facebook or other platforms where I could talk about, you know, what do you think about this? Or who was your favorite character? What was the best moment? It's got a lot of great moments. If you haven't seen it, you know, watch it soon. Not today, tomorrow. Intergenerational prayer. Prayer partners from different generations. I mean, all things you can do online. One-on-one prayer, online prayer wall. All these are intergenerational. Family-to-family prayer partners. Community weekday prayer, which can be streamed, but if you have multiple generations in leadership roles, either live or pre-recorded, they can take different aspects. So I'm not so much focused on Sunday worship. I'm thinking about all the other prayer experiences that are open for us to be able to plan and organize. A weekly prayer group on Zoom. Get together, greet, sing, pray, 15 minutes. That's the example down below there of evening prayer. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, live at YouTube Live at 7 o'clock. Tackle justice or service area. Let's say we just dedicate a whole month. We selected justice issues, social need. There should be no lack of those in our societies. Research the issue, curate learning resources and action projects, direct aid, advocacy, etc. Kick off the month with a live stream. And I'll talk more about how to do live streaming. Presentation or demonstration, engage all ages in online learning experience on the issue, and then engage in one or more action projects that you've already curated and made available. Family can do it together. It can be intergenerational. People can work on it either in person or in an online setting. Bring everyone together to share their experience and what they've done. So that can be a focus, again, focus the whole church around a particular area that you want to do, a social justice issue or a service need you want to address. So again, intergenerational, but it's made possible because you have digital platforms and tools available to do it. At Vibrant Faith, we created this wonderful resource called the Visual Faith Project. And you could go, if you go to that link, you'll be able to get free resources and images. We developed a 5,000 photo image database, all copyright free, royalty free images. And a very simple process. You see the children in the picture doing this, but this can be a family, intergenerational. You could do it online and share it with each other in a Zoom, meeting with 25 people. Out of all the images which you would lay out, of course, digitally, you'd make those available on a particular theme or topic, either a life issue or a faith topic, for people to express themselves, tell their story through the image, and then either to connect my life issue to scripture or to connect the scripture that I found in the image to my life. And so it's a very simple process, selecting the image, moving from life to faith or faith to life, using the reflection questions, and then sharing that. It's an easy intergenerational experience. The photos are all online. You can do your own as well, but it also works well in a digital platform. So you're able to put the photos up, give people the question, pick your favorite photo, have a conversation. You could use it for not only for learning, scripture study, prayer. It works for all those settings. So all digital, these examples, but all intergenerational, bring different generations together in a digital platform. So I want to look at programming in this last part, and that is large group and small group intergen programs. As I created those and developed those, I think about 3 primary formats. Live streaming or Zoom meetings, you already know that technology, but that's synchronous, meaning it's at fixed time. Like today we're doing a synchronous program. It's a fixed time, we're gonna be there. The second part is online playlists of content. So in a digital platform, we have how to go deeper, how to learn not necessarily learn online, but how to access online content to learn, reading, video, audio, printed materials. That's asynchronous. You do that on your schedule. And if I was doing intergenerational, there'd be developmentally appropriate activities, children, teens, adults, the whole family. And then special resources to help parents so they feel comfortable, competent in sharing their faith with their children and teens. So developmentally appropriate, and then parents. And the third aspect would be some way to do group discussion or group sharing. That could happen in a Facebook group, which would be asynchronous unless you schedule a time, or a Zoom meeting. Now, what a Facebook group allows you to do is obviously post pictures, post images, videos, etc. The Zoom meeting allows a very similar thing where you can do show and tell, but it's the discussion and presentation piece. So when I think about live streaming, I'm thinking about a cooking show. Now, we've all watched a cooking show. And the elements of it, like live streaming worship is not the best example of what live streaming can do. So it varies from church to church. My own experience has been, it's basically the Sunday worship without any changes being simply broadcast in a dark church. Or an alone church, with empty pews. Live streaming is much more like a cooking show, which has presentation, it has demonstration, it has some, like these two, some interaction among the presenters. There's something very concrete that they're doing, and they're teaching not only about it, but how to do something with it. And it's pretty interactive. So when you think about live streaming, think about a cooking show. It can be all live, or it can have pre-recorded elements that you put together into the presentation. So that's what live streaming is. Think about live streaming now in these different ways. So when we're doing intergenerational learning, small group learning, it's really important to have a learning process. This is a very simple application of Dr. Bernice McCarthy's format learning process, which is basically engage, explore, create, perform. Very simple. But when you're creating playlists or you're creating this kind of programming, you have to have a format that you're working from. So you have to have a process we're working through so that it flows. When we teach in person, we just do this instinctively oftentimes. But in an online format, all this has to be staged, if you will. It has to be designed around a learning process. And this is what I mean. If I was doing over 4 weeks, I'll give you some examples of 4 weeks. Week 1, I want to engage the learner. That would be my synchronous part of an experience. And so this intergenerational experience, this is where a chance we get to gather people online, introduce the topic, show how it connects to the life of the learner, presentation, demonstrations, video, storytelling, etc. Live and pre-recorded. Week 2 and 3 are both asynchronous, so they're on your schedule. Explore the topic or theme. Select one or more activities that go with that theme. So this is where your playlist of faith formation becomes really helpful. People go to your website, and on a website page, you've got this variety of learning that goes deeper into the theme. In week 3, develop a way to share what you're learning, to practice it, to demonstrate it. And then in week 4, what have you learned? Share that, perform and present the project. Now, oftentimes we would do all that in a 2 or 3 hour intergenerational gathering. You've got to stretch that out over a month in a sense, because each of those can't be longer than an hour and maybe shorter. Some of it's going to be scheduled, synchronous, and some of it's going to be asynchronous. I'll give you some examples of this model. So here's a small group intergenerate. So one of the ways to think about intergenerational, since we can't gather big groups, is intergenerational small groups. So obviously the family is your basic unit, but you can get a couple of families together, or you can get the grandparent generation, or either kindred or non-kindred, adults, older adults, to join with that family in a safe environment. And so week 1, to kick off the programming, I'm going to live stream the presentation and demonstration. So everybody gets, so they don't have to worry about, like parents don't have to worry about teaching their children. No, it has to be a teacher. Everybody can be a learner and a participator. So we're going to live stream it from a central location. It's going to look like a cooking show. So if I'm doing, tonight I'm doing something about Advent Christmas, or I'm doing something on what we believe, or I'm doing big Bible story or book of the Bible, it's going to be, it's going to be alive. It's going to come alive for people. So that goes to everybody, kind of beamed out. Week 2 and 3 are asynchronous. These are online. So people are going to explore that. They can schedule their own meetings to do that. They'll be learning in a digital platform. And your week 1 triggers the whole experience. People want to get into that. You've kind of, enticed them into learning. So 1 week is exploration, 1 week is integration. And then week 4, we gather again, this time for an online session where people share and present what they're doing. So Zoom is obviously best for that, but you can do interactive pieces with it. So an intergenerational large group presented from a central location. A typical intergenerational session has 3 movements: all ages together, and then some developmentally or age appropriate, and then all ages together. So the welcome and the opening prayer, I'm live streaming. I'm doing our introduction, and then whatever the all ages experience is. It could be pre-recorded. I might have had the teenagers do a skit or a role play. I might be showing a video. It might be something dramatic. It might be a tour that we've done that's in video. But in other words, the all ages experience appeals to everybody across the board and sets the kind of the theme for the night. And in part 2, I will demonstrate some of what they're going to be doing at home. So here's families, here's teen, et cetera. And if I'm using Zoom, for example, I can break out into a room just for adults, just for families with children, just for teens with somebody moderating. If I'm live streaming it, the at-home adult presentation can happen while the family is offline doing the activity that we prepared them for. So I can do something just for the adults that is, on whatever the theme is, a theological theme, biblical theme, life theme, just for them. And then we all gather. And we share what we're doing. So what do the adults learn? What do the children and teens do? They get a chance to share that in an online platform, Facebook page, photos, stories on Instagram. In other words, the technologies that people already know how to use. And then we close with reflection and a closing prayer ritual that was live streamed. So you can take this 3-hour piece or 2.5, whatever, however you want to do it. And once a month, come at people with this. And then the rest of the month, develop that through your learning playlist. So I can format the entire month, but only one of these is a fixed time experience, which is this gathering. In the States, because we're in the summer months, a lot of people cancel their vacation Bible school program because of all the safety concerns. But you can do an extended time program that's live streamed with at-home activity. So this is like a typical morning at vacation Bible school. It could also be grandparent-grandchild camp. You can't gather people, but they can be at home doing this. Same kind of format, 3 different live streams, at-home activities in between where you go offline. So it's a blend of watching something and then doing something and learning something back and forth. We have the ability in live streaming to be able to direct the learning experience, take the burden off moms and dads or grandmas and grandpas from having to teach. We'll do that part. They'll do the experience activity discussion part of it. And so this is a blend of live stream and then offline home activity and the rest. There are some churches that are doing this. They kind of shipping a little box home of the activities for VBS, so it's very analog in this digital environment. But it's a way to bring, both of these are examples of ways to bring faith formation, intergenerational experiences to people, but using a digital platform to make it happen. Playlists are what is the glue or the stitch that holds all these pieces together. And you may be familiar, obviously you're familiar with playlists from Spotify and the music playlists where you can curate songs, create your own albums, if you will, playlists for an artist across musical genres, et cetera. If you've been on Spotify or Spotify user or one of those, you'll notice that there just are gazillions of playlists created by both Spotify and Spotify users. And the key in a learning playlist is it gives us a chance to structure the learning. You've seen how I kind of structured that a bit. The key in digital learning is it's micro learning, not long learning. So 5, 10, 15-minute kinds of experiences. Provide lots of different ways to learn. Do a mix of methods and media, and feel free to use learning, the learning apps that are out there. So, okay, create a video out of this, and here, download Animoto to create your video. most of the older children, but certainly middle school and high school, will have a lot of these apps because they're using them in their school settings as well. So they'll know exactly what you're talking about. But different ways to learn. So it's not like one way to learn, because the learning playlist allows you to do all kinds of different learning. I'm gonna give you some examples. This is from Australia. This is Grow Ministries weekly Growing Faith at Home. This is a playlist. It's a playlist built around Sunday. We've got, there's examples, we got an example in US, a couple examples of this, but this is Australia. This was for last Sunday. And you see that from this, you can pray together, read the scripture together, do an activity together, do a service activity. See the menu of things you can do. Can you do all of it? Of course you can. Can you do one or two things? Of course you can. So if you went to Sunday worship, whether it was in person or live stream, this would be the playlist for at home or intergenerational faith formation at home. But it's simply it's a playlist of faith forming experiences. And then it's got some worksheets that go with it. So dwelling in the word, stained glass cross. So what you're doing is you basically pull together a playlist around Sunday worship. Well, that's exactly what I would do if I was doing an intergenerational program on following Jesus, or an intergenerational program around Advent, Christmas, or Lent, and Easter, or Holy Week, Pentecost. It's the same kind of thing, whether it's a life theme or a faith theme or a church year theme. This is one. So I worked with a church that was doing faith formation built around their Sunday sermon series. So every month was a theme. They selected the scriptures for that theme. They preached on that theme every Sunday at worship. And then what we did is we built playlists to reinforce that, to go deeper, that were mobile. And so there's no gathered part of this. It was all mobile. So this example, the one I did for gratitude for adults. And there was one for adults, youth, and then families with children. So I just organized it into learn, pray, read, listen, and watch, or live. Just those basic categories. So try to use more video. It's mobile. People can do this on the, while they're waiting. Moms and dads can do it while they're waiting for the kids at soccer, baseball, basketball practice, and the rest, while you're commuting to work and break. They're all 5 to 15-minute activities. But they're things you can do throughout the week. And all told, it'd be about 2 hours of adult faith formation every month if people did everything. And they could have time if they broke it into those micro learning, 5, 10, 15 minutes. My colleague, Kathy Pittenger, who works in Michigan for the United Methodist Church, she's the Children's Ministry Coordinator. She's been creating playlists around topics or themes, which you could see, like if I was doing an intergenerational program around fear, anxiety, and Jesus, this playlist just goes deeper from that. So a Bible story, and she's got 3 things you could do with Psalm 23. Also, you could watch the video, activities you can use, illustrated, prayers, a gratitude chain, and then books. But it's options. You pick and choose which ones of these you're going to do, but they all take you deeper into the theme. So if I had done my first week, we live streamed a program on, be not afraid, in music and ritual and scripture and presentation. This could be the playlist that takes you through week 2 and 3, and then come back in week 4 and share with us your gratitude chain, or share us the picture you designed, or share us a little video that you did, that kind of thing. So you get the whole learning cycle comes through, from engaging the learner to exploring it, to reflecting on it, to creating something. Another colleague of mine, Jenna Campbell in Oklahoma, she organized a variety of playlists. Now these are standalone ones, but it gives you an example. This is also Faith is in an Anxious World. She used 4 videos to launch this. So there was something to read, some scripture passages, then videos to watch. Again, this is a playlist of learning. Connect this to a program on Faith in an Anxious World, which would be a great intergenerational program, in which we maybe introduce scripture and now go deeper with scripture. Now watch this video. Wonder about these questions. Maybe share what you're wondering about in an Instagram post or in our Facebook group that for our intergenerational people, participants. A prayer to pray, and then a little activity. So grow your circle, So they're simple, But what they do is, if they're launched by that live presentation that you stream to people, they help you go deeper in group settings. And it can be also by yourself, so it'll be independent or group settings. And then you round out the learning process using the playlist to help people present something of what they've learned. So it gives you a 4-week cycle of learning that you could use in small group or large group intergenerational programs. So, geez, almost on time. So just a reminder of where you can get more about both of these on my Lifelong Faith website or the Vibrant Faith Catalyst, which you can join for free. And you'll get the PowerPoint after this, but I'm most interested in what your questions and reflections are. We've looked at intergenerational in the digital world and how to think about using these digital strategies and platforms to really advance and expand intergenerational faith formation and ministry.
Welcome back, everyone. We're just coming back from the breakout rooms. So if you have a question, if you just pop it in the chat there. Was there any there you wanted to start off with, John?
Yes, I got a couple that I read, so I'll just respond to those quickly.
Thank you.
One of the things that was kind of underlying a lot of the thoughts is how do you name intergenerational? So relational, obviously. How do you name this? And I really just talk about this as either digitally enhanced or digitally mediated, as opposed to digital relationships. I mean, technically, I guess that could be true, but I rather think about the digital as things that are mediating the relationships, so that people don't feel like, we're always online and it's really a substitute, that virtual relationships are as real as in-person relationships. And I was at a wonderful conference and the presenter started off by saying, I never believed that. And then she told her about her experience. She said, the whole mystical body of Christ has a new meaning to me when I think about what's happening online and virtually as people connect with each other spiritually and relationally. And so that's really been helpful to me. So I think about, how do we digitally mediate intergenerational relationships and experiences? Not as a replacement for physical, but as an enhancement and expansion of that. So I think that's important. It also then helps us with the current, in quotes, zoomed out experience that unfortunately moms and dads and maybe grandmas and grandpas sometimes have had, because everything got thrown at them. Like in the States, everything went from the classroom into online except the desks. That was the only thing they didn't put online was the desks. I mean, so people just got overwhelmed by, I'm on Zoom for work, I'm on Zoom with my kids, I'm on Zoom with my, my friends, like I'm just zoomed out. And so I think it's important to lower the use of Zoom, and that's why you blend these different mediums. So synchronous and asynchronous, and then be really strategic when we want to gather people for interaction, which is what Zoom does best. Facebook Live and YouTube Live do streaming best, but Zoom does interaction better than anything else I've used. So I think that's an important piece. So about micro-learning, do people do it? So that's always the question when you do what I'll call self-directed online learning. Do people do it? And that's why I'm going out of my way to make the point that the live streaming, scheduled live streaming, like, programmatically triggers the experience. And so that's what's the motivator, the inspirer. So that's why it's got to be really, really good. And I think the perform piece is what closes the loop. So if at the end of it, you say, we want everybody to put up, and you remind them like 300 times. We want you to do an Instagram story of your experience, or put photos up there. You could always do the tried and true. You're going to pick the 10 best stories, and they're going to get an award of some kind. It's got to be something good. Pizza delivered to your house or something like that. Really practical, not a ribbon. But you can have some fun with that. We're going to pick the 10 best stories just to build some excitement and interest in it. Okay, so yes, it is a problem helping people become self-directed, but they can be. And if the micro learning experiences are shorter pieces, so you can come back to that over and over again, that will help. So 5, 10, 15 minutes. So nothing long. I mean, the whole thing might be an hour. I talk about that as like Lego building blocks, that you build an hour learning plan out of 5, 10, 15-minute Lego building blocks. People ask about putting content online, about copyright issues. And so you'll notice that almost all the examples I've showed are descriptions and links to activities on other websites. And so you have to describe what the activity is, and then you could link to it. You never copy a film, you never put it on your website, you'll link to YouTube or Vimeo or wherever it is. And even the example I gave of the film festival, people don't have to watch it online together. I mean, in fact, you probably wouldn't want to do that together. But you want to say, this is the week we're going to watch it. And then we're going to have a town hall about this movie and share examples and stories. People can access the movie on Netflix or Amazon Prime, whatever format they want. So you avoid copyright issues by not putting things onto your website, but linking to them, but describing them really, really well. And then, of course, anything you write can go on the website. A lot of people had a lot of child protection issues. I think there were some really great responses in the feed about those. Remember, when children are going to be online, they're going to be online with mom or dad or grandma or grandpa. So you're going to you build in the child protection in that sense, okay? They're not going to be going into, looking online. They're going to go to your site. The reason why a lot of churches have started using places like Edmodo, it's a password protected online learning space. Moms and dads have the password as well as the children. So in that case, you kind of built in that. So you got to go the extra mile on security. You have to make sure you have places that are password protected or safe, and that parents have access when it would involve children or teenagers. That's just got to be the norm. So that's a big piece of it. Let's see other questions that people have raised. How do you attract the missing generation so that you can have real intergenerational ministry? You can pay them to come. I mean, that's a tried and true strategy. I mean that facetiously. Part of what we have to communicate is, so the common misnomer about intergenerational faith formation and ministry is that it's family or children and parent faith formation. And so what you want to do is make sure you have a robust piece in there for adults, empty nesters, mature adults, older adults, and make sure you've got on your intergenerational team those generations represented. It's a harder sell with 20s and 30 somethings because they're mobile and the rest. So that's a harder piece. That's a bigger church issue. But certainly empty nesters and older, you can get them involved and engaged, but they have to see clear activities and they have to see other people their age or life stage involved in a leadership role who are inviting them to participate. And so it's really, really important that you have great activities when you gather, or whether it's online or in person, doesn't make it virtual or physical, but that you're also being led by the experience, people who represent those generations. I've worked with a lot of churches where the adult faith formation was really, really strong, and they had a lot of people in adult faith formation. One church I worked with, every once a month, they were the largest adult faith formation in the country. They had over 1,000 adults coming to their week of intergenerational learning because they came not only for everybody, the whole community, but they came for their adult faith formation piece that's nested within intergenerational. So that I think that's a real important point. It's a good issue to raise. The other thing, Jenna raises this, the more people can create and be engaged, and the more people from different generations you utilize in the learning, that you utilize in presenting, that you utilize in small groups, the better. Because people want to see people like them in what you do. So if the live stream is a 70-year-old guy like me doing all the presenting, well, maybe I'll get other 70-year-old people there. So I'll get the older adults there, but you're not going to engage the whole spectrum. But if I have a teaching team, then the possibility of doing that goes up dramatically, where they're seeing young people present or do something musical. They're seeing children do that. I mean, like for us, like in All Saints Day, children doing an All Saints procession, filming that and getting it on. It just, everybody draws to that. So I think part of it is the more presenters and the more generations reflected in the presenting and the experiences and the stories and the visuals, the better. The more that can happen, I think it's going to strengthen everything you do, whether it's one of my simple ideas of digital storytelling all the way through to intergenerational programming in a monthly format. I just think that really, really worked. It's just important to have that. I'll never forget the story when I was doing intergenerational, starting in churches 20 years ago. One church that was entering their second year of doing monthly intergenerational faith formation as their primary way of doing it, wanted to promote this and get more older adults to come. And they had a team up there that went from families with young children through teenagers and young adults to the oldest member of their community. She was in her 90s and she came every month. And so the pastor asked, just at the end at the worship service before the final blessing, would you be willing to just share, you get 1 minute, share why your life stage should come. The last one was this wonderful 90-year-old woman said, I was here when we built this church. And I thought I knew everybody here because I've lived here my whole life. And she said, I met new people at Intergenerational. So I want all my friends, you've got to come. This is a great experience and you're going to meet some really great people. That was the best part of the whole thing because she brought her whole generation and as she spoke to the whole community and just oozed credibility and authenticity. That's what makes all of this work. It's the people, and get them on stage, and that's our job is to equip and enable them. So have fun with all these strategies. Try some. I mean, I have a good friend who said, this is the time to reinvent. And my response is, well, nobody can tell you we've always done it that way during a pandemic. Like you get a chance to experiment, try new things, prototype things, test new things out, take advantage of this opportunity, and it's here. God made us for this. Figure out what God is calling us to do. And I think intergenerational can take on all kinds of new meaning in the middle of a pandemic. And people are lonely and people are isolated and they're looking for connection, and we can do that. That's what we do.
Yeah.
So thanks so much.
Very relevant. Thank you very much, John, for sharing with us today. It's been really, really exciting and really helpful for thinking about our own context.